Hello, everyone. We are now on week number 8, right? We got 5 more weeks for the semester. So still some useful stuff for you to learn is coming up. But I think we basically, up to now, for the lectures and tutorials, I can give you a little bit recap very quickly. So far, especially for the weekly tutorial videos, for week number 6 to week number 8. Oh, you know what? Let me write it down over here. Otherwise, it could be a little bit confusing when I only just say it. Okay. Okay, so if you think about in terms of the weekly tutorial, right, that you have been doing. Okay, let me recap very quickly. So for week number 6, week number 7, and week number 8, we basically talk about the OOP basics, right? Things about classes, attributes, objects, and also how you can use context object using this keyword, using the dot notation to really call the methods or call attributes, and also how you can trace the creation and manipulation of objects, right? That's really what we cover in weeks number 6, 7, and 8. So these will be expected in your coming programming test number 3, which I will talk about a little bit today. So just give you a little bit better idea what to expect, hopefully more accurately this time. All right, and then looking ahead, we got basically another 4 weeks of Java tutorial videos. So here's the plan. For week number 9, which will be released this coming Thursday or Friday, right? For week number 9, we're going to see some very useful application. Oh, week number 8 tutorial was tough. Michael, I would agree with you. It's tough, but it's we have to learn the tough stuff, right? So just I want to get you prepared. But I'm going to send a survey later today. I'm going to hold some maybe review session to maybe further help you get prepared for programming test number 3. We'll talk about it. All right. For week number 9, Java tutorial videos, we are actually going to see some useful application for object-oriented programming, which is really what the title of this course is suggesting. So the title for this course, I'm not sure if any one of you actually pay attention to it. It's called Programming for Mobile Computing. So we are really now going to talk about mobile computing for a bit, which is how you can apply the knowledge about OOP to develop some Android mobile apps, specifically Android Studio. There might be other platforms that can also allow you to develop mobile apps, but that's kind of beyond the scope for this course. We'll talk about Android Studio specifically. So we're only going to stay in Android Studio for week number 9. It's going to be another programming IDE, but I would say it shares similarity with the Eclipse to some reasonable degree. So it shouldn't be such a shock for you to use another IDE. So it should be okay. So I will still try to walk you through all the basics for using the IDE, especially for the purpose of completing your labs. Okay. And for week number 9, it's going to be somehow reinforced by your lab number 7 and also lab number 8, right? So these are the 2 remaining labs. Well, of course, you are now also trying to complete lab number 6. But for lab number 7 and lab number 8, they are going to be completed in Android Studio rather than Eclipse. Okay, that's something to emphasize. But you will see the lab instruction as well. And what about week number 10? Week number 10, week number 11, and also week number 12 for the weekly tutorial, right? We will actually go back to Eclipse to do more important foundation for object-oriented programming. Okay, specifically for week number 10, for week number 10 and 11 for the tutorial videos, we will talk about so-called 2-dimensional arrays, which is a very interesting data structure. It's more like a generalization of 1-dimensional array, which you have been doing for example, your programming test number 2. And with a 2-dimensional array, you can solve some very interesting problems. For example, if you want to develop a game, and then you want to have for example, you may want to have a chessboard, and how you can lay out the chessboard is going to be naturally a matrix, which is what you learn in mathematics. So that's really the data structure you will need. Having just 1-dimensional array is not going to be sufficient for you to really program such game board. It's not good enough, right? So that's why we want to learn about the concept. So we'll stay for week number 10 and 11, we're going to stay in two-dimensional array. And then for the final one, for the final weeks of Java tutorial video, I'm going to speak a little bit more about API for Java. So which is to say, beyond this course, maybe during the summer, if you are not going to take another course, I will encourage you to really look into what's really available there for the Java API. So there are many library classes which actually were developed by some other developers, which are available for you to use. So I will just teach you the principle and also give you some examples. And then the rest will be really up to you. So that's beyond the scope for this course, right? So in this course, we learn mostly about how to build things from scratch. I think that's a very important skill for you. But at the end, we also show you how you can explore yourself some other classes that people have developed for you, right? And Battleship, yes, Battleship is definitely something you can program for using two-dimensional array for sure, absolutely. But for your lab number 8, I'm thinking about some maybe some simple game. But Battleship might be a little bit too complicated for you guys. But if you're interested, feel free to develop that as a side project for yourself and put it on your CV or check it into your GitHub. I think that will help your future career as well. All right, guys, I just want to give you a little bit of a look ahead about what you can expect to happen in the coming weeks. So we are not going to rush for the weekly tutorial videos. I think it's still important for me to cover the necessary background stuff so that you hopefully you'll be ready for the second year. Well, we'll do our best. All right. Yeah, Somas, I agree with you. It's definitely some much stuff in the short period of time. As a promise, I will try to give you like a little bit like a slightly more maybe more challenging practice test, and then I will also host an extra study session for you guys. So try to do as much as you can. So for example, let's talk about one by one. Okay, let's say for your let's talk about it before we get to the Q&A for today. Okay, so for your upcoming programming test 3, okay, which is gonna happening next week Wednesday and Thursday. It will be your programming test number 3. You check the calendar. And then I already made available your practice programming test on the e-class. I just sent out an announcement. So this one here is actually a more challenging one, which means it's much more accurate for you to know what to expect in the actual programming test. So I would suggest as soon as you're done with your lab number 6, try to really tackle this particular programming test. On Friday, I'm going to actually hold a review session. I don't know which time might be better for you. I'm going to send out a survey on e-class later today, and then we can talk about the programming test number 3 in more detail together. Maybe not today. Maybe you're not so ready to talk about it. But just do whatever I say. You should really get prepared. Hopefully, you'll be fine this time. All right? But I think for the programming test number 3, as long as you are comfortable with lab number 6, and for lab number 6, it's really, really crucial that you actually finish the weekly tutorial for week number 7 and week number 8. So crucial. If you finish them, you really got all the code structure you would need for your lab number 6, and also for your practice programming test number 3. And for the actual one, hopefully you'll be ready, right? And then today, also, for those of you who may not be aware, I also posted the aliasing related questions for practice test number 3. So I will go over the questions together with you since we don't have that many in the Google Doc. So I think we can have that luxury today for time. All right. And then after all these, if time permitted, I can also take any question you might have for lab number 6. Feel free to tell me which part you don't know, simply don't know what to do. I can definitely give you some guidance. And of course, since it's recorded, so it can be shared by all your other fellow students. All right. All right. Michael, you say you added some question to the Google Doc this morning. Yes, it's just Michael. It's just one question, right? I looked at that just earlier this morning. Is it this one here, Michael? A few of them. Okay, so let me just So guys, okay, that's about the plan for the rest of the semester, and also okay, good. Let me just go over the Google Doc question. The only one I got from yesterday was this one here. But since Michael said he only posted a few, I will go over there in just a moment. Okay, I'll go there. Okay, let's just start with this one very quickly. Okay. So since Michael said you didn't ask this one, okay. So anyone here actually asked this question here? It's something about just clarification about the parameter design for the constructor or for the method. Okay, if you ask the question on the Google Doc, please feel free to speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to just interpret the question the way I see it. Okay, let's go over the question quickly. Okay, for constructor of a class, so we are supposed to create different constructor method, like a different method, different versions, and we call this overloaded, right? We call overloading. Remember, we talked about overloading in the tutorial video. Overloading. So overloading simply means you have the same name. The name is the same. However, the names are the same for the methods, and the lists of parameters are distinct. Of parameter types are actually distinct. So that would be the definition for method overloading, and then we gave some example in the tutorial video. All right. And then your fellow student says, let's now consider this particular setup over here. Let's say we got public class. Let's say some class over here. We got integer attributes. We got Boolean attributes. And then in this particular constructor over here, the input parameter actually got integer and also Boolean. I would say typically, if a particular constructor's main goal is really to initialize your objects attributes, right? So depending on how many attributes you want to initialize, you should pass that many attribute input parameter value. That's the principle. So now, since you got integer and Boolean over here, so typically you will want to use this value over here to initialize the integer attributes, and you want to use the Boolean parameter over here to initialize the Boolean attributes, right? But one thing I can see your fellow students trying to say here, whenever you declare attribute over here, as I mentioned in the tutorial video, you do not want to initialize the attributes over here. You do not, even though you will combine. You should only leave the initialization to the constructor. Okay, so that's some principle I wish you can follow. Okay, initialization of each attributes should occur in constructor. Should occur in constructor. Okay, so that's the principle. And then, okay, let's see the question here. What if one call to the constructor over here wants to omit Boolean 2 input and give it a default value? Okay, I would say it would be strange. According to this definition over here, whatever Boolean value you pass over here is going to be used to initialize the Boolean variable. So you're saying that you basically just want to ignore this particular parameter. So I would say it's more like a design flaw, right? If you want to ignore the parameter, why would you declare that in the first place? So that would be my feedback to your fellow students. So what you can do instead would be, you can simply, I would say, just omit. So my reaction would be, then why declare the second parameter in the first place? In the first place. Okay, so what you really want to do instead, if you really just want to initialize just one the integer variable, what you should do is you should really only declare just another constructor. You can say public, and also the class name, and also only give integer number 1 over here. And then in the body of this particular constructor, you will simply just use this line over here to initialize the integer variable. And the Boolean variable will just be the default value, which is false. All right. The default value, okay, Michael, the default value for Boolean variable is 0, which is false. I think in Java, 0 and false, they're different, right? So when you say Boolean variable, you should really say default value is false. You shouldn't say that's 0. But for the integer variable, it's 0. Okay, some clarification over here. All right, and also what to do if the caller will possibly give arbitrary length of arguments to a class instance, right? I would say, okay, let's say, for example, in this particular class, we actually got two versions of the constructor. Either you got two parameters or you just got one parameter. And if the caller or the user simply just want to call, for example, they simply say new, and then the constructor name, which is the class name, and then they simply pass maybe rather than two parameters over here, for example, right? If they give three, in that case, what you will get is some syntax error for sure. So Java compiler is going to catch that. So you're just not allowed to do so. All right. All right. So that's my response to this question here from the Google Doc. Any follow-up question to this? Anyone? Everybody okay? All right. And as Michael said, he actually got some question on the Google Doc, and I didn't see them actually earlier this morning for some reason, but let me take a look. So if I go to the Google Doc over here, so Michael, are you sure you put it in the right doc?
Did I put in the right doc?
Yeah, because I'm looking at the week number 7 document.
Oh,
maybe you put in the wrong one.
I put in week 8. That's why.
Ah, okay, I see. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why I didn't see it. Right. Week 8 is actually for next week, but let's take a look.
Oh, sorry. I didn't write that.
Is there a question over here? Michael, is that what you wrote, or something?
Oh, no, someone else wrote that, not me.
Okay, you see here?
Yeah, those bunch of questions, yes.
Okay, sure. Let's take a look. Private variable cannot be accessed in expressions of debugger. That's correct. So if you declare your attribute to be private, then you cannot really say some variable name dot the attribute name. You cannot do that. You must use a public accessor. That's correct.
Okay.
Let's see right away. Let's go one by one. For example, let's see this. If I try, let's say, point. Private x, private integer y. Over here, we got x and y. All right. And then let's say we are trying to create some points. Let's say point tester, the main method over here. And we will do, let's say, points p1, new points, just like that, right? And then after this, we're going to say system the out of print line. Let me just say, first of all, you can see P1 declare X and Y to be private, meaning that outside that particular point class, if you try to do, for example, P1.x, it's not going to compile, right? You can see if you move your mouse over X, you will say the field X is not visible because it's private. So the only way you can get access to X would be to define some public accessor for X. So that's the only way to do it, okay? So to do that, let me just do for X, just for illustration. Public integer get X. And then I can say return this X over here, all right? And then, so you definitely cannot say P1.x because X is private. So if you say get X, that would be okay. So Michael, do you follow so far?
Yes, I was just referring to when you're
Debugger,
doing
right?
the debugger.
Yes,
yeah.
It will be the same principle, the same, I believe. Let's take a look. I just want to show that it's really consistent, when you compile the code versus when you run the code. Let me now launch the debugger. And then let's see this. Let me remove the previous expression. Okay, so now if I say P1 over here, you can see P1. If you expand it, you can see X and Y. But what if I say P1 dot X? Oh, interesting. I think once upon a time, they wouldn't allow the private attribute to be accessed in the expressions over here. Apparently, they're being more lenient in the expressions. It's good that I check. So Michael, actually, I was wrong. So I think that when you write a program, you cannot say P1.x because the compiler is going to complain that X is private. However, in the expressions over here, they are being more lenient. If you say P1.x, provided that X is an attribute, public or not, it will be okay.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you.
All right, that's a good question here. Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know actually. I think I used to write when I used a maybe older version of Eclipse, maybe this was not allowed. That's my impression, but it's good to know. But it will always work if you say p1.getX. That's a public method, so that'll be 0. Okay, so that will be giving you the right answer as well. All right. All right, very good. So Michael, that's your first question. All right. And then should I where's the next one? Is the next one
Professor,
over here?
Yes. Oh.
I have a question related to that question.
Go ahead.
So what if we were to say it was static? Would that still make the compiler like not run the code?
You mean, okay, say it again, or what do you want to change?
If instead of private it was static,
Oh, you mean instead of private, you just want to say static, right? Okay. We haven't spoken about static just yet, but let's do it, okay? I can give you some intuition about static. It will be the topic for the lecture for the coming week, not for this week, okay? I can talk about it. Let's say we make X over here static. As soon as you change a variable to be static, so that means the variable does not belong to any specific instance, right? For example, whenever you say Y, it's a private attribute over here. That means every object of type points is going to have its own value for Y. However, if you declare the variable as static, so that means all the objects that will be instantiated from points, they will share the same copy of X. So the same copy will be shared. So you can think about it in some ways like a global variable that will be shared by all the instances of this particular class. So now, what can you do for that particular static variable? For example, here, when you say this.x, so what Eclipse will do is giving you some warning over here. So I wouldn't go too much into detail. That will be the subject for the coming lecture. But if you want to get access to the static variable, you can simply just use the class name .x. For example, I can say over here, I can say sys out over here, and then I can say points.x. Right? You can see over here, it's pretty much like when we call the utilities methods, we can say utilities.method name. That's what we could do. And now if the X is actually static, so that means we don't need to create a context object of type points in order to get access to X. You can just use the class name over here directly. Amy, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Yeah, for static variable, we'll talk about it in detail for week number 9 lecture. Okay, so we'll get there.
I have a
Let
question.
me go back. Yeah.
So what's the difference between when you have no access modifier and when you have public as the access modifier?
You mean
like
here,
right? There
right?
you have so you have static into X, but there is no public in front of it. So what would happen if you put a public in front of it?
The difference is let's say you have a project here. Under the project, you got different packages. Let's say package 1, and also you got package 2. All right. Let's say under package 1, you got 2 classes. And under package 2, you got another class over here, right? Let's say, let me just call it A over here, class A, class B, and also class C, okay? Now, if I say class A over here without, since you want to talk about attributes, let me just talk about attributes. That's not a complicated matter. Let's say I got public class A, and this will also be, let's say all the classes are public, all the classes. And also public class C. Okay, we got A, B, and C. Let's say we declare one private attribute over here. We would say private, let's say A, integer A. And then we got another one, let's say integer B. And then we got another one, let's say public integer C. So now you can see the difference here. One is private, the other one, another one is public, and this one without any modifier. Armin, that's your question, right? Basically. Is it?
Class A. Right, it's A.
You're basically asking about the modifier for the variables.
Yes. So
yeah, that's okay. Just do you follow so far? We got private, we got public, we also got no modifier.
Yeah, but how is public and no modifier different?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm going to explain. But do you understand the setup so far? The difference.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So the difference is when you got anything that's private, right? It's only accessible within the declaring class. When we say resident class. Meaning that in here, let's say over here, let's say in the context of this particular class, right? In the context of B, they are in the same package. A and B are in the same package, but A and B are different classes, right? Let's say in the context of B, if I say A, object A is assigned to, let's say new A over here. And then if I try to say OA.A, so this would not be allowed because A was declared to be private. Armin, do you follow the first point?
Yes.
Okay, first point, right? So what about the second one? Let's talk about integer B, right? Let's say now in the context of A and B are in the same package, but they're different classes. In the context of class A, let's say I declare B, object B is assigned to new B over here. And then if there is no modifier for this particular variable, that means it will be visible within the same package. It's called package visibility. Okay. So now if I say OB,
but it won't be visible in the project.
It won't be visible outside this particular package. This package.
Oh, but public makes it visible everywhere.
Correct.
Throughout the entire project.
That's correct. So do you follow?
So when would you? Oh yes, yes. Now I understand.
Okay. Another example. Let me ask you to check your understanding. If I try to say over here, if I say B, OB, new B, and now can I say OB dot B?
No, you can't.
Why not?
Because it's in the other package.
Yeah. Because B has no modifier, so that means it's not visible outside that particular package, right? Very good. All right. So guys, hopefully you follow. So modifier is not really something we will assess you.
I have another question.
So I would say that's really nothing to do with the logic too much. So I would say that's more to do with the access control for your software design, which we don't really cover in this course. But I can give you some general principle over here. So the principle will be, if you want to make a particular variable like A over here, only visible or only accessible within the resident class, then you'll make it private. If you want to make a particular variable to be accessible within all classes in the same package, then you will simply just leave it like a package visibility, neither private nor public. And if you want to make a particular variable over here accessible by all classes in the universe, in the package, in the public project, actually across all the packages, in that case, you will say public.
Okay, so I have another question.
Go ahead.
So is there ever a situation when you would, oh wait, never mind, I got it.
Very good. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right. Yeah, it's something good to know, but I think it's not directly relevant, but I think it's good to know for sure. Let me go back to the Google Doc to see the next question from Michael. From
This question, yeah.
Who? Michael?
Yeah, I think I answered. You answered it for me when I went through week 8 more thoroughly.
Oh, really? Okay, sure, no problem. So, Michael, so which one should I answer? You can tell me, right?
5 is a bit more relevant than 4.
Maybe
So
I should look at
maybe
5,
and
maybe?
4. Yes.
Okay, 5. Okay. Michael, why don't you ask me right now? Just save me some time.
Oh, I was just wondering because you were going over in week 8 how to establish a helper method and how to use it.
Yeah.
And then you said there's 2 rules. You can only use it once, and it has to be the first line. But when you used it in this specific context or example, it was the second line.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Confused.
Very good question. Very good question, Michael. So let me answer verbally first, and I'll illustrate to everybody. So the rule only applies when you're calling helper constructor. But when you're calling helper method, in that case, the helper method can be called in any line.
Oh.
But
Okay.
let's, it will be worth illustrating that for everybody. I can understand where the confusion might be. Let's now illustrate this. Okay, let's now, we can still use the point over here, right? Let's say this. Let's say we got public points, default constructor of, you know what? Let me say this. Let's say integer x, so this x, public, let me maximize it. Public points, integer y. This y is assigned to y. So now we got 2 versions of the constructor. Wow, apparently I'm making a terrible mistake, right? Apparently this is not allowed, even though I called it a different name, right? It has to be distinct types for the parameters, right? Sorry for making this mistake. Let me just say this. Let me say I got x, let me just say 1. Let me use the one that's actually from your slides, okay? So we'll say if we want to do the axis on x, in that case, we should really set this x is assigned to the val. Right, guys, if you recall the lecture, I guess it's from week number 6 or 7. We talk about this version of the constructor, okay? Else if the axis is actually y, so that means we want to initialize a point from the y-axis. It's assigned to val. All right, so this will be actually 1 constructor over here. Okay. And then let's have just another constructor over here. Let's say points. And then over here, let's say integer, let's say some val. Let me just say arbitrarily in the following sense. Let me get rid of this, right? I don't need this anymore, just some val. Let's say whenever we have just a single integer to be passed, so we assume that you really just want to create a point along the x-axis. So that's our assumption. Okay. And then, x value should be val times 2. Let's say that, okay? Let's say make the assumption there. So what we should say is something like this. This will be the correct implementation. So we can say this over here, and then is so that whenever you say this, so that means you want to call some constructor, but this will be the constructor we want to call. We want to put it on the x-axis. We'll say x over here, and then val. So that'll be the first step. So no compilation here, no compilation error. And then after that, we want to say x should be val times 2 over here. So we can say, for example, this val maybe is assigned to this val maybe multiplied by 2. Sorry, this x. Just get myself a little bit confused over here. All right. So this everything compiles in the following way. We are calling the helper constructor in the very first line, so that will be allowed. And then after that, we can do whatever updates we wish. Now, what would not be allowed is if you call the helper constructor not in the first line. For example, if I put it over here, it would be disallowed, right? If you move your mouse over, it's going to say constructor call must be the first statement in a constructor, right? So that'll be the first part for the Michael's question, right? And you'll say this, not allowed if not placed in the. So point number 1, if you want to call helper constructor, it must be the first line for constructor, okay? On the other hand, I'm just going to get another let's say another example here for helper method, right? I'll just make it up just to show to you the syntax. Let's say public integer get x2. All right, over here. So what I can say is I can say integer value is going to be 0, okay? And then I can say value is assigned to get x. And then I can say return 2 times value over here. Right? You can see now we have no compilation error, even though the call to the helper method over here, which is over here, even though it is not as the first statement. So that would be completely allowed. So whenever you want to call helper method, you can call in any line you like. It does not have to be the first line. However, if you want to call helper constructor like this, it must be the first line. The idea would be because when you're calling a helper constructor, you're really trying to create a new objects. So you only want to create a new objects as the first step rather than in the middle step. So Michael, would that be okay for this question here?
Yeah, that's great. Can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Are you allowed to do this.x equals this.x times 2 in the constructor method, or are you just doing that for illustration?
Which one? Sorry.
This.x is equal to this.x times 2.
Oh, this is actually good. You know, this is actually so what does this mean?
You're multiplying it by 2.
Well, think about how this variable assignment will be executed, right? You're basically trying to do a variable assignment. You're trying to assign some value to this.x. But what value are you trying to assign to it? You're trying to assign its current value times 2.
And this is allowed in the constructor method, right?
Yeah, it's definitely allowed.
Okay.
For sure.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Just we haven't
right,
seen that so far. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Very good. You can think about this. I believe.
I have a question.
This you can also say they will be equivalents. So Michael, you can see this. They are equivalents. Remember
yes,
the augmenting assignment that we spoke about in elementary programming. So when you say, for example, if you say x plus equal 2, that means x is assigned to x plus 2. So now if I say this dot x times equal 2, I really meant this expression over here.
Thank you, Professor.
No problem. Okay, just something for your information. And Armin, your hand is raised.
Yes. So why is there this? Why can't we just have x equals x times 2?
Well, again, in this, you're right. In this situation here, there's no variable shadowing, so I don't really need to put this. So this will just be implicit. So it's completely up to me as a programmer if I want to put this or not. If you don't put it, that's fine.
And also in the bottom and on line 19, why is there this instead of point?
Where?
Like there's a method call and there's X and val.
So that's
Yeah,
the syntax for calling another constructor as a helper method, right?
Another constructor. Oh, so
this
why
did you
can't we just
did you
use
go
the name of
over
the
week number 7? Week number 7 tutorial?
No.
Yeah, you really want to go over there, right? So those are created for going over these kind of details. You want to go over that. So in that particular tutorial, we spoke about how to call helper constructor. You may want to go over there first. And also week number 8 will be also crucial for your lab 6 completion. So you really want to catch up with the tutorial.
Okay.
All right. Armin, any follow-up question if you want to ask?
No.
Good. All right. One question from Sarah. Can we use an accessor method from one class in another class? The answer is yes. Okay, let's see. I tried doing that, but then it said that the method has to be static, but you're right, we don't really use any static method in our OOP syntax, right? Let me see this. So Sarah, let me try to answer your question quickly over here. Let's see this. For example, you can see for the point class over here, we do have some getX and getX2, right? And then, of course, there's nothing static. Maybe, Sarah, I will tend to guess, maybe because your method is not public. You want to make sure it's public, right? So if you try this, for example, if I say point collector, right? Over here for point collector, I can just say point P. All right, and then I can say point collector over here, right? Just default constructor. Okay, of course, it should be private over here, and then I can say P is assigned to new points, maybe initially just origin, so 0, 0. All right, and then we can say public. Let's try this. You were asking whether we can call. Let me just say X and then 0, like that. You were asking whether we can call accessor method from another class. Let's try. So let me say integer. Let me say some method, right? Right. I can simply say return p.getX. So you can see there's no problem over here. I'm calling the getX on the context objects, so that's no problem. So Sarah, if you got maybe a particular scenario that's not working, maybe drop by my office hour. I can take a look at your code, so that might be easier. All right. All right. Let me go back here. So Michael, any question unanswered?
Question 4.
Question 4. Okay, sure.
Yes.
Again, guide me through it, please.
I'm just wondering because string is also reference type. So correct. I'm just wondering if it has attributes because all the instances we make from classes we created has a template.
Okay, very good. So basically, it's a very good question, Michael. So let's think about this. Before I show you the API, let me ask you this. You can see when we declare our classes, right? The principle we said we will follow will be every attribute should be just private. Agree?
Yes.
That means any class, any external user of the points, they will have no idea that we have such a private attributes. They don't need to know because they simply are private. Do you get this point so far?
Yes.
Very good. So now let's apply the same reasoning to the string class. So the string class, when the string developer developed it, I'm pretty sure they got attributes inside the string class. However, they will follow the same principle. All the attributes will be private, which means when you see the Java API, you will not be able to get access to the private attributes directly. You will have to actually call the public accessible mutator to actually access that.
Okay.
Does it make sense to you?
Yes.
Very good. Good. So you can think about for string, for example, rather than you have to say X, you're going to say get X. So the way to do it, even though I will actually talk about this API in the final weeks for the lecture. Okay, but for now, if you're I'm pretty sure some of you have been Googling around for this kind of stuff. So I can say Java string class over here. Okay, if I go there, for example, so that's so-called the API. So don't worry too much if you struggle about how to read it. We'll get to the detail of this maybe later in the lecture. But if you look at that, so they tell you about what constructor you can call in order to create a string, right? So these are all public. And also for the methods, so these are the methods you can call. For example, you can see char at. So this is a method you can call. It's an accessor because you got some return type that's not void. And then you got the parameter over here. And as you're right, you wouldn't see any attributes because if there are any attributes for the for the string class, they would have been hidden by being declared private. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's why. Okay, it's a good question. Very good question. But I can see by what we have been following is also consistent with what you will see in the Java API. So all the attributes are private, so that's why you wouldn't see them, right? Alrighty. Okay, Michael, did I miss anything from the Google Doc for you?
No, those were all my questions. Thank you.
Very good, very good. All right, guys, I think so that would be about all the questions I can see from the Google Doc, right? So I think it was still early, so I'm willing to stay for longer for sure. I can suggest 2 items for us, right? One item will be we can go over the practice questions one by one for your written test, right? For the easy one, I can still go over them. It's just quicker. And Selmits actually asked about specifically 7 and 8. I think we can definitely get there, right? So maybe we can spend maybe another 15 to 20 minutes going over the written test question quickly. And then after that, I can take any question you might have about lab number 6. All right, so that will be the plan. But during the middle, if you got any relevant follow-up, as usual, just interrupt me, all right? Okay, let's now go over the practice written test question, all right? For those of you who have tried it, bear with us. If you haven't, why don't we try it together, all right? So I would suggest for every one of them, I'm going to pause for, okay, let's read it together. Okay, the structure will be somehow similar, okay? We assume that we have a person class, and that one there has a name attributes of string type, and also a constructor that will initialize the person's name for the input string, right? Only taking a single parameter. So now we want to consider the following fragment of Java code inside the Java main method, let's say, console application. Okay, the question is, what would be the console output? So this one should be incredibly easy. It's only a warm-up question. So Armin, would you volunteer to tell us what you think?
So what's the output?
What's the output?
The output is false.
Why would it be false?
Because, sorry, no, the output is true because it's not equal.
Right, remember it's only print line, right? So we only want to print out this Boolean expression to the console.
Yeah, so the output is true.
The output is true. Okay, are you sure? Why would that be true? Actually, I should really ask that way. Why would that be true?
Because the value in the constructor is different, which means there's a different reference to the items. And since
okay, your reasoning is not exactly right. You said because the argument passed to the constructor are different, so that's why they are different objects. That's not the reason they are different objects. They are different objects because you're using 2 separate keywords over here. That's why they are different objects. For example, for this part here, if I also put the same string as the first one, let's say Hyang over here, is that going to modify the answer?
No.
Right? So I just want to correct what you just said, for the reasoning. All right. All right. So the first one is really easy since we're using 2 separate new keyword over here, right? So what's going to happen is P1 is going to point to some person objects, and also P2 will be pointing to another person objects. So now when we say P1 is not pointing to the same object as P2, so that's definitely true. All right. So that will be true. Okay, guys, any doubts about the first one? If you have, feel free to follow up.
Professor,
Michael, yes.
is this written test 3 or 2?
Written test 2, absolutely.
For a second, I got scared.
I know, I got scared too. Yeah, I don't think time should really move that fast, really. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, bear with me. All right. Yes, yeah, don't worry about it. It's test 2, don't worry. All right.
Whew.
You know, usually there's some scary movie, you know, when you wake up, you know, in the morning next day, and suddenly you're actually in a different universe. And then maybe several days ago, or maybe 1 year later, right? It feels like that kind of movie.
Yes.
Right. Anyway. Okay, don't worry. Okay, let's go on to number 2. Okay. So for number 2 over here, okay, guys, why don't you read the question here? Basically, all the context over here is the same. We got a person class, we got a name attribute, also we got a constructor, right? And then we simply got this particular one here. So what should that be? What should the value be? All right. Anybody? If you are shy to speak up, so please put your answer on the chat, right? We can just let you practice a bit. Or if you want to speak up, feel free.
Professor?
Michael, please.
I think it's false.
You think it will be false? Okay, what you're saying is, Michael, you believe when I print this out to the console, it's going to print out false, right?
Oh, wait.
Can I give my answer?
No. It's a null pointer exception.
Okay. Okay, is that your final answer, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, you said it should be null pointer exception. Sure. Armin.
It should be array index out of bounds exception because indexes start at 0.
No.
There we go. All right, but Michael, to be honest with you, I think in the actual test you will be okay because we actually give you the options to choose, right? Rather than simply asking you what might be what should be the outcome right away, right? So yeah, in some ways slightly harder than the actual test. All right. Okay, let's see. So guys, it's very good. I think what Armin and Michael said is really important to realize. We got null pointer exception, meaning that when you try to use a dot notation, when you say something dot some method, for example, if the context object is simply just null, so that's how you can get null pointer exception, right? It's a very important concept. And for array index out of bound exception, so that means you're giving some index that's either too small or too large. Okay, and then one small tip for you. Tip for test 2, written test 2. Okay. You want to review about short circuit evaluation and array indexing. You want to review that part of the lecture, especially if you put the wrong order for the guarding constraints, and then how can I fail? So that's my tip for you for your written test 2 on Wednesday and Thursday. All right, just review that and do the example on the slides. You should be all right. Okay, so now let's just solve this very quickly, right? For those of you who may not be able to see that. Let's visualize that. So we got P1, P2. So we got P1 over here is pointing to some objects, right? It's Hyun, I'll just say H. And also we got P2, which is pointing to just another objects, and that will be Jiyun. I'll just say J here. And then the way to visualize number 3 over here is to say persons, I'll say PS, is pointing to a new array that actually got size 2. Okay, 0 and 1. And initially, both slots is going to point to null, right? Both of them, initially, right? So that means, for example, if hypothetically, if you say PS1 dot get name, for example, and this would be the null pointer exception that Michael was thinking about. So this would be, right? Just for your information. But if we try to do this one over here, when we say persons over here, right? Persons array, PS basically. Persons.length will be actually 2. So that means when you go on to go to PS of index 2 is simply invalid. So we definitely get into the array index out of bound exception, as Armin said. All right. We'll see. We still got 6 more questions, Michael. Let's see if you can catch up.
Professor, may I ask a question?
Yeah, Salmons, yes, please.
What's the difference between question 2 and question 3? Because in the question 3, we don't have those parentheses.
Oh, don't worry. We will get to question 3 in just a moment. We'll get to. Yeah.
And in a solution, you point out the answer is the above Java code doesn't compile.
Yeah, we will get there. We'll get there. So you're talking about question 3, right?
Now question 2.
Question 2.
The answer of question 2 is the above Java code doesn't compile in the PDF file that you already sent for us.
Really?
Yes.
Let's take a look. Let me take a look. Let me take a look. Let me just go to solution over here. I said does not compile, right? Interesting. Oh.
Because of parentheses.
There we go. So now Jackie is actually smaller than Michael, smaller than Armin, I think. All right. So guys, I think good, right? Absolutely. I think whatever I just said over here, okay, okay. What would be the best way for me to fix this? Okay, so very good. This part over here, compilation error. Which Salmons correctly pointed out. Thank you. That's tricky. That's tricky. Guys, I promise, since even myself got tricked by this will not be on your written test too. This question specifically, right? It's too tricky. I agree. All right. Okay, so do we understand that having this will give you compilation error? It should be just that length, rather than that length parentheses. Okay, and then if we go to okay, again, it's written test 2. If we go to question number 3 over here, you can see that in this part, you can see only the length over here. Sorry. So now for this part over here, you can see we only got the length. So this will compile. And this will actually give us the array index out of bound exception.
Professor?
Michael.
I think your screen is frozen on the PDF of question 2.
Oh, sorry about that. My bad. Thank you. Yeah. So let me say it again. I would say, guys, for question number 2 over here, basically when you say persons.length over here, so the parenthesis is going to cause the compilation error. I know that one's tricky, so this question specifically will not be on your written test too, right? I got tricked myself too. All right, I promise this question specifically will not be there. All right, and then when we move on to question number 3, so now this time we actually got just that length, so this part is actually valid. So whatever explanation or visualization I just did over here should apply to this particular question here. So you will get array index out of bound exception. All right. Salmons, thank you. You can clarify for us.
You're welcome.
Good. Okay, let's now move on to number 4. Okay, for number 4, so you guys can take some time to think about it, and let's now see what the answer should be. Again, it's the length already, right? So there's no compilation error. All right. So now what should be the answer?
Can I get an answer?
Let's wait a little bit, and then so people may want to think about it. Let's wait for 30, maybe a few seconds. Yeah, go ahead, Armin.
False.
It's not equal to null would be false. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is null.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sarah.
Absolutely. Yeah. This one is also easy. You can see here, we say persons is simply pointing to a new array over here. And then we simply got 0 and 1. And then they initially just pointing to null, but we haven't really assigned these two objects. We haven't really copied their addresses to either of the slot just yet. So that's why when you say persons.length will be 2. 2 minus 1 will be 1. So that's a maximum index. So that will be just null. So null not equal to null will be false. Okay, that one's easy. Very good. All right. Very good. Very good. And Sarah, you're right. It's actually false. Okay. What about this one here? And of course, to be more accurate, you should really think about this should be get name.
Okay, can I say my answer?
Let me see if anybody else would like to answer. Let's see. Anyone else would like to try? What should be the output for this? Anybody?
I'm so scared because I'm
Michael is
afraid to be
okay.
wrong again.
You know what? You know, the equation you put up, right? I think somehow I was the one who actually also got tricked. So how about this to make you feel better?
All right, can I say my answer?
Yeah, Michael, you want to try?
Is it null pointer exception? Is this one an actual null pointer exception?
I would tend to agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, there we go. So this one here is going to be persons pointing to this array of size 2, and then 0, 1 pointing to null. And let's now go on to analyze that expression there. So persons.length will be 2 minus 1 will be 1. Persons at index 1 is really referring to this slot over here. And then when we say dot get name, so dot is referring to some null objects, and you're calling get name on null. So that's why it's going to be a null pointer exception, right? You cannot call a method on some non-existing objects, so that'll be null pointer exception. Okay, null pointer exception. You can see the complete spelling in the solution as well. All right, any question about number 5? Everybody is okay? Very good, thank you. Number 6. Slightly more complicated, slightly, right? How about this one here?
Can I say my answer?
Anyone else who want to try? I can let you guys try. Maybe, yeah, you can say anything. Yeah.
It's false.
You believe it's false? Why?
Because you're storing the P2 address into P1, and person 0 is storing P1, or sorry, person 0 is it's storing P1. So
so I would say this question specifically, it might be easy for you to see you're copying P2 onto P1. So P1 has been overwritten, and person 0 is still keeping the address from P1, the old P1. So that's why they should not be the same. However, I would suggest to really answer this question with 100% confidence, you may want to trace the code quickly, right? Why don't we do it together? So after these 2 lines, we got P1 pointing to some object over here. The names are not relevant for this particular question. Okay, I'll say object here. And P2 is also pointing to just another new objects. And then we say create this array, right? Index 0 and index 1. So I think you may also want to review last week's lecture about aliasing, right? I actually did an array example for aliasing. So that's something you want to make sure you go over, okay? So now let's say 0 and 1. So persons pointing to index 0 and 1. So index 0 is copy the address of P1. So that means that one is going to point to wherever P1 is pointing to. And index 1 is pointing to wherever P2 is pointing to. So hopefully everybody's okay up to this step. If you do have problem, please speak up, right? after this, we are going to actually do P1 is assigned to P2, meaning that we're going to copy whatever that is stored in P2 into P1, right? Copy whatever that's in P2 into P1. That means P1 is now going to store whatever P2 is storing, right? And then we're now ready to answer the question about the either assertion or maybe the printout. So now what will be the answer for this, right? So now you can try to see that persons, persons is pointing to this array, and index 0 is really referring to this particular object over here, right? This object. And what about P1? So when we say P1, P1 is now referring to this particular object. So they are different objects. So the answer should be false. If you're confident enough just by looking at the code without tracing, good for you. But I would say depending on the complexity of the question. So your safest bet really is to draw some diagram quickly, right? Okay, any question about this question here? Yeah, it's so much easier to really to follow with the boxes and arrow. Exactly, that's why I try to show you this, right, in, everywhere. Can I think of the assignments as just modifying the arrows? Yes, exactly, absolutely. So Michael's insight was, when I say I try to reassign P1 by the value of P2, basically store the address of P2 into P1, meaning that P1 is now going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to. That's exactly the point, right? Either you can think about we're copying addresses. That'll be one way to think about that's really happening, right? Or you can think about you're just changing the direction of the arrow. Either way is fine. All right, let's now go on to what Selmans was asking me to go over. That's good. So now number 7, right? Armin, I'll let you speak this time. You can take some time. That's okay.
I'd say it's false.
Okay, you don't need to explain it. You think that's false, right? I will put your answer aside. Let's see. All right, I would suggest, like everybody, since I recommend you actually will actually. Oh, somebody would say true. Interesting. Somebody would say true, right? Well, it can be either way, right? Cannot be both. Cannot be neither. It got to be one of them. All right, let's see.
Wait, no, I can't change my answer.
Huh?
I changed my answer to true.
Yeah, you can change your answer. You think it's true?
Yes.
All right, sure. But we're not sure yet, right? All right, let's now take a look. Actually, I also got 10 from the chat. They thought it should be false, right? But that's okay. Let's now. So guys, as I recommend, it's kind of your choice in the actual test. If the question is somehow not as easy as the first few questions we went over in the written test, you may not want to risk by just looking over by your eyes. I would suggest you may just want to grab a piece of paper and then trace it. That would be my recommendation. Let's try. I will do the same, to be honest with you. P1 and P2. Okay, P1 pointing to an object over here, and also P2 pointing to an object over here, person, right? And then we got the array over here. So that'll be persons array pointing to the starting address of the array, indices 0 and 1, index 0, index 1. Index 0 is going to point to wherever P1 is pointing to, right? Wherever P1 is pointing to. And then index 1 is going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to. Like that. So far, so good. And we'll do copy. Let's say P1 is assigned to P2, right? So after copying the address that is stored in P2 into P1, after that, P1 is going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to, okay? Hopefully I'm not going too fast, right? And then we're going to do another one here. Let's say person 0 is assigned to P2. So Michael, help us out. How should I change the diagram? Should I change the arrow for P2 or should I change the arrow for persons 0?
For person 0.
Exactly, because person 0 is the targets of the assignments, right? Good. So we are basically copying whatever that is stored in P2 into this particular slot, right? So whatever that is stored in P2, we're going to copy that over into this guy over here. So that means rather than pointing to over here, it's going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to, right? Let's not do that. Okay, so now persons at index 0 is now, rather than pointing to over here, is now going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to, like here. All right, so now we are ready to answer the question. Let's try. So now, when we try this, let's say person 0 is really now pointing to this particular object over here. Is that the same object as P1? Indeed, it is. So the answer should be true. All right. Selman, you actually asked me this question in the beginning. So is that okay for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I hope that's clear to you, right? I think the main lesson to learn from here, you may not see exactly the same question on Wednesday or Thursday. So that your safest bet is to trace it using some piece of paper. That'll be the main strategy you want to adopt. Okay. Okay, final one. Yeah, of course, you can assume that we actually got get name over here. Yeah, before I start tracing the code, anybody wants to contribute the answer? You can put it on the chat. Ah, Michael using pen and paper, good man. All right, very nice. That's exactly what you want to practice. Exactly. Anyone? And also we assume we got set name mutated method, right? Which will set the name for the object. So this time when we visualize the objects, we will need to change the name. All right, anybody? So Yang, say Jihei over here. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got my answer.
Amen, what's your answer?
Jihei.
Jihei. I'll put question mark here. We don't know yet. Okay. Any other answer? If no, oh, you cannot spell. That's okay. Yeah, just Jihei. You believe that's the one, right? AV. Good. Very good. No problem. Okay, why don't we trace it together? Okay. Again, P1, P2, right? P1 is pointing to the person object. You know, let me be a little bit more accurate over here, right? This will be our final question. So person objects, and then we got name. And this one here is pointing to the name for Hyang. And we also got P2. Stores the address of another person object over here. And then it has name over here. And then that one points to Jiyun. Okay. And then we're going to have the array over here, persons, which is pointing to this, which stores the starting address of this array of size 2. So 0 and 1. Index 0 is points to wherever P1 is pointing to, right? It's pointing to the Hyang object over here. And then index 1 is pointing to wherever P2 is pointing to, which is over here. All right. And then the first change we would like to make is over here. P1 is copy the address of persons 1. Michael, help me out. What arrow should I change?
You should change the arrow from P1.
Exactly. So P1 now, the target should be pointing to wherever persons 1 is pointing to, right? For everybody. Let's rehearse that. So P1, let's see, where is persons 1 pointing to? persons 1 is pointing to this particular object over here. So P1 is now going to point to that after the reassignment. Okay, let's do that. So now after this, P1 is now going to point to wherever persons 1, exactly. Wherever persons 1 is pointing to. Oh, right, that's right. And then another one here. Let's say we do this line over here, and I don't need to trouble my code again, but this time we know that we're going to change the person 0 over here on the target, right? So now person 0 is now going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to, and P2 is pointing to this object over here, right? So now person 0, rather than pointing to over here, is going to point to wherever P2 is pointing to, like that. Okay, and then finally, we're going to see this line over here. P2 the set name, Jihei, over here. P2 the set name will be Jihei. So rather than Jiyun over here, it's going to be Jihei. Okay, and then system the other print line, P1 the get name over here. Okay, let's try that. We're saying P1 is pointing to this object over here, dot get name is going to be Jihei. Yeah, so the answer is correct. So, Selmets, are you okay with the 7 and 8 right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, I got
Okay,
it.
very good. You know, I will give you some suggestion. You may just want to make sure you are also able to visualize the code that we went over in the lecture. Okay, let me point to you. And then I can take you some short questions from the lab, okay, if you got any questions, okay? So remember from week number 7, we spoke about, let me go to the slides first. I think it's either 48 or 49, I forgot which one it is. Let's just go there. 48, right? So we did the detailed tracing for this example here on the lecture to make sure you can handle problems like this. All right, for aliasing, then you should be all right. All right, any more questions about the lectures or tutorials before I speak about briefly about lab 6? Guys, any more questions? Everybody's fine? All right, so now I'll now open the floor. Do you have any question about lab 6? Anything about lab 6? You can just speak up and let me know what question you might have. Anybody for lab 6? I'll pause a little bit here so you can think about it. No rush.
I'm having questions regarding the written test too. So the format was similar to what we have doing in the examples, that with a simple setup for a particular object, and we ask for some operations on the objects, right?
So for your written test number 2, so you will be given the format for the test will be identical to test number 1, like a multiple choices on E-class. And the question about aliasing will be somehow similar, right? Similar, may not be exactly the same, similar. So similar to a question like this, right? You got to do some visual tracing. And also specifically, you have to make sure you understand how to do problems like this, which we covered already in the lecture, okay? And then there are other topics that's not really about aliasing. That's also about loops and arrays, right? If you look at the guide for written test 2, they're also covered. So you want to make sure you study those as well, like a short circuit effects for array indexing. So does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Yeah. Okay, from Armani, I'm having trouble getting the list of participants for each course in the online school. Okay. So Armani, I suppose you already follow week number 8 tutorial videos, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Very good, very good. I will give you a big hint over here,
Okay.
which will be for everybody, of course. So for get participants, yes. So if you go to the lectures page, and then if you go to this written notes over here, and then I'll point to you where you should really look at. So if you go to the point collector class over here, okay, let me try the page number. Page number 3 for the written notes, right? So basically, this method over here is about how you can select all the points collected so far, all those points that's in the first projects. However, in your case, get participant, you are getting something even easier. So I would say your first line should be very similar. You want to basically initialize an array that will be the same size as how many participants are already in the school, and then copy over one by one into that particular local array. That's what you will do. Amari, does it help?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that it works. Yeah, thank
Yes.
you. That helps.
Very good. Yeah. Just out of my curiosity, have you got a chance to go over the written notes?
Not these ones. No, I was just
Yeah.
videos.
So yeah. So you may want to maybe go over at least this method over here. I think that will definitely help.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely will do that. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, good. Your question sorted from Sarah. Are we going to have to write code for the upcoming written test? No. So Sarah's question was, for written test number 2, will you be asked to actually write any Java code? The answer is no. I can tell you no. No problem. So guys, just for your written test number 2, I think it's definitely important for you to study aliasing in the object-oriented programming, right? That's kind of the new topic. However, the coverage also tells you to go over the slides for loops and arrays, right? Especially the short circuit indexing that we spoke about in the a short circuit and array indexing that we spoke about in the lecture, and also the example that we spoke about, and also the 4 versions for checking either universal property or existential property in the lecture. Make sure you go over them as well, right? These are important. All right. Tan, you're welcome. All right, Marcia, the guide. All right. The written test 2 guide, yeah, is on the lecture site. And I also sent out the announcement earlier, right, about where the guide is. Just go to the lecture site, yes. If you go there, and then you will see that the coverage over there, so it will be about the loops and also for your classes and objects lecture up to slide 50, right? And also this written notes you should also go over. All right, any more questions about lab 6? Good.
Professor?
Yes.
Do you recommend, because I'm trying to understand how to approach certain problems, because what I usually do is write out a rationale on my paper, on a piece of paper, and then code it. Is that an all right approach, or do you not recommend it because something's more efficient?
So Michael, are you talking about like a loops and array problems in general, right? Not really OOP.
Sorry?
So what kind of problems are you talking about? You just say in general, before you code, should you put something on the paper first before you go on? Is that what you meant?
Yes. That's what I did for the programming test too, and it helped me. So
yeah, I think yes. I think it's always important for you to sketch some solution on the paper to know where you're going, right? But I would say dealing with programming test 3 might require a slightly different strategy, slightly different. So I will, so Michael, hopefully you will be able to make it to the review session on Friday. I'm going to make a survey to everybody about which time might be the most preferred by everybody, the most of you. So I'm going to maybe try to do the practice test part of it together with you. So I will show you what strategy you should really adopt for your programming test 3. That's what I will do on Friday. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully you can make it, Michael. If you cannot, you can ask me again, maybe over email or office hour.
No, I'll definitely be there. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Yeah, guys, we can still stay a little bit, maybe a few more minutes if you wish, but any more questions? if you haven't get started for lab 6, you may just want to get started, right? It's really important. Okay. Okay, I'll wait a bit and then just to see. See you, Michael. Take care. All right, guys, let me just wait for a few more seconds. If you have no questions, I think I mentioned many tips today. So hopefully you can adopt them and make sure you study them. So you'll be fine, hopefully, for a written test too.
Professor, may I ask a question?
Summits, please, go ahead.
I want to know, how can I book an appointment for office hour?
Oh, you mean, do you want to come in the office hour or you want to book outside the
Yes.
office hour?
No, in the office hour.
No, actually for office hour, they're called office hour just because you can just drop by without any appointment. You can just drop by.
The link is in the
link?
class.
Yeah, let me show you. If you go to lectures page on the top, over here, the Zoom office hour here, just click on the link.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So tomorrow 1 p.m., no appointment needed. You can just come.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but you may have to wait in case if your fellow student came earlier than you do. So you gotta wait a bit.
I know. If I wanted to come outside the office hour, if I wait too long, what should I do? I need to send an email for
Send an email to me
and
in case you cannot make it or somehow you had to wait too long, and then just send me an email and then I will just tell you what time we can make it, right?
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
All right, guys, final call for questions. Final call. All right, everybody, thank you for coming, and then I will see you later. All right, take care.